India, other cities of India. So we are hoping to have a good conversation. Hope this is okay. Did that work in Hindi channel, Avikal or translators?
Can I speak? I think I am hearing two voices in Hindi track. Why is that? There are two people speaking in the Hindi track.
We can start now.
Guys, can anyone send me the link to the Facebook Live, please?
Yeah, I'm just sharing in the chat.
All right, thank you. Oh, can you send it by WhatsApp so I can, or is it too complicated?
It will come to me. I will
Okay.
send it to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for everybody who had joined this series today. It's a collaboration, and I think it's an experimental collaboration because we are still trying to figure out and have a conversation between different cultures. I think, but the West Asia is a cradle of different melting points, civilizations. India itself is a big civilization, and I think we speak multiple languages. We have multiple diversity. We have multiple practices and faith and uh, thousands of years of history. And so it's a conversation, and I think it's a conversation and it's a collaboration for us at People's Resource Center for the first time. Uh, Generally, when we think of conversation and collaborations, then we end up having collaborations with North and the West. But I think this is the time we are having a conversation which is extremely important and interesting for us. This started as a collaboration between me and Ansar Jasim, who is here, who is also the moderator today. Both of us collaborated on we are part of a working group. And from there, this idea of having conversations around the urban farming and in the context in which we have grown, come up with the urban farming ideas and what is the ideological thinking behind this. People's Resource Center has been working on this issue for past 2-3 years. And the more we have been working, deeper we have been going into and coming up with new ideas and thinking, how do we actually convert this into its systemic thinking? So it's part of a systemic thinking. It's just not about farming and growing your own food. Food is essential, and that's why it's a systemic issue for all of us. So that's how we started. This is the backdrop in which we are having this conversation. We have a wonderful set of fantastic panelists who are here to speak to us today. We'll start with Rajendra Ravi from People's Resource Center, giving a context, welcoming everyone as the host of the program. And then we will have People's Resource Center has been working actually in the past 1 year and looking in the city of Delhi, what are the possibilities and how different ways in which people are growing their food. When we are saying growing their food, it means not only just rice and cereals, but it means all different things we consume, from fishes to, because Delhi has a river also, and it's based on a river basin. Apart from that, Delhi has huge issues with the pollution, with the garbage, with a number of other things. And our research has actually gone into these different dimensions and aspects. Apart from that, we are looking at what we can learn from other parts of the world. So PRC has been collecting information from Cuba. So there is a booklet which we want to release today. So Rajendra Ravi will assist that process. Then we will go to presentation from our friends from Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine. So we'll start with Ansar giving us a background of what the reason is, because many of us, we know these countries, we hear them, but in India, many of us do not always know where the boundaries start and the boundaries we see today, if they were the original boundaries. So there is a history behind this and how this whole area changed. Ansar will take us through that. After that, then we will have Lina talk about her experiences from Palestine. Lina is a researcher, farmer, practitioner. She's an environmental activist and based in Palestine, Ramallah. She will add more about herself during course of presentation. Then the Khalid and Serge together, you can see them in the same frame. Khalid and Serge, both of them are environmental activists and based in Lebanon, environmental activist, architect, farmer, and in, I would say, systemic thinkers and practitioners both. So they will take us through their presentation and the way they have been working. Before that, Abdullah will come in and Abdullah will speak about Syrian experiences and how, because Syria, we know in India and we hear the country has been in mid of the war for last 10 years and bombing, siege, and everything has happened. In that diverse situation, in the conflict situation, the Syrian people came up with the idea to grow their own food, not only to sustain themselves and survive themselves amidst the war and siege, but also as a challenge to the occupation. So it was coming out of a popular revolt and popular revolution of the people. So Abdullah will share about that practice. Towards the end, our friend Nishant from People's Resource Center, he will take us through what our work in Delhi and the thinking behind it. So that's the thing we have. I hope we will still have some time for some questions and conversations. So even though we have said 2 hours, but we might have to go a little beyond, which we are open to and we can have, because we are having people speaking in Hindi, then in Arabic, then in English. So we have multiple challenges. However, we do have translation for those who are listening in Hindi. जो लोग हिंदी में सुन रहे हैं उनके लिए ट्रांसलेशन है. नीचे में आपका इंटरप्रिटेशन का बटन है, वहाँ पर अगर आप हिंदी चुनेंगे तो वहाँ पर हिंदी आपको हिंदी में सुनाई देगी बातचीत, और साथ में हमारे साथी वहाँ पर अमित और सूरज दोनों ट्रांसलेशन कर रहे हैं. साथ में चैट में भी मोहिनी जो है हमारी साथी, वह हिंदी में वहाँ पर लिख रही हैं. तो हिंदी के लिए जो भी बात अंग्रेजी या अरबिक में होगा वो आपको हिंदी में वहाँ पर सुनाई देगा. ठीक है. और जब अरबिक में ट्रांसलेशन होगा तो उस समय अंसार जो हमारी साथी हैं वो अंग्रेजी में ट्रांसलेशन करेंगे. सो व्हेन पीपल विल स्पीक इन अरबिक, एट दैट पॉइंट अंसार विल ट्रांसलेट directly to us in English, and then we can hear that here, and then from English you will hear the translation in the Hindi channel for the Hindi speakers. So it's slightly complex, but I think we will manage this today. So welcome everyone once again, and Rajendra bhai, we'll start with Rajendra bhai.
धन्यवाद मधुरेश.
Just
आवाज आ रही है ना?
Nishant, somebody will be translating him in English so that I can ask everyone to switch to English, or we just do a translation here.
No, I will do.
Okay, so when Rajendra Ravi is speaking, we can all switch to English channel and then we can hear him speak in English. Okay.
धन्यवाद मधुरेश, आपने बहुत सारा काम आसान कर दिया. दरअसल आज बहुत ही खुशी का मौका है और एक चैलेंज भी है कि दुनिया जितनी खूबसूरत है उतनी ही कॉम्प्लेक्स भी है. और आज जो हम लोग शहरों में खेती के बारे में जो चर्चा कर रहे हैं, अलग अलग देशों में, अलग अलग दुनिया के कोनों में, वो दरअसल पीआरसी के नेतृत्व में चर्चा हो रही है. लेकिन इसके पीछे एक लंबी यात्रा है जहां से हम लोगों ने था एक हुए हम लोग इस नतीजे पे पहुंचे कि अगर जो समानता के आधार पे चलेगा तो निश्चित तौर पे उसमें स्थानीयता का एक अभिन्न अंग होगा. और इस निष्कर्ष के बाद हम लोगों ने तमाम कामों को एक साथ जोड़ते हुए एक नए शहरीकरण की एक नई अवधारणा के तहत अर्बन फार्मिंग को देख रहे हैं. अर्बन फार्मिंग नई अवधारणा का एक हिस्सा है और इसको हम जो आजकल दिल्ली में स्मार्ट सिटी की अवधारणा सरकार पेश कर रही है या उस पे जाने के लिए मजबूर कर रही है, हम लोग का उसके विपरीत सेल्फ रिलायंस सिटी कैसे बन सकता है, शहर भी आत्मनिर्भर हो सकता है. और उसमें आज की जो चुनौतियां हैं हमारे पास, उन सब चुनौतियों का एक जवाब भी है। क्योंकि आप किसी भी शहर में चले जाएं तो वहाँ पे पॉल्यूशन है, स्वास्थ्य का चुनौती है, पानी, पहाड़, जंगल, ये सब को खत्म होते जाने की चुनौतियां हैं। और सबसे जो बड़ी बात है कि जो समाज में ज्ञान रूपी जो जो स्रोत है, संसाधन है, वो भी खत्म करके उसका कॉर्पोरेटाइजेशन हो रहा है। पीआरसी इन सब बातों को एक साथ लाने की कोशिश कर रही है। हम लोग का बहुत ही छोटा समूह है, लेकिन वो बहुत ही संगठित और रुचिकर तरीके से काम में लगे हुए हैं। पिछले कई सालों से इस पे हम लोगों ने चर्चा के साथ साथ प्रयोग व्यक्तिगत स्तर पे और जो समाज में प्रयोग हो रहे हैं उसको लोगों के सामने लाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। हम लोगों ने अर्बन फार्मिंग के बारे में बहुत चर्चाएं की है, लेकिन अब उसको शहरों में कैसे प्रयोग हो रहे हैं, कौन से लोग कर रहे हैं, क्यों कर रहे हैं, उनके पीछे बैकग्राउंड क्या है, इन सब बातों को समाज के सामने, परिवर्तनकारी समूह के सामने, आंदोलनों के सामने लाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। आज की जो चर्चा उसी की एक कड़ी है, बहुत महत्वपूर्ण कड़ी है। हमारे पास समय बहुत कम होता है ऐसे चर्चा करने के लिए, लेकिन ये जो डिजिटल की दुनिया जिसकी जो मौका मिला है, इस वजह से दुनिया के दूसरे कोनों में जो लोग ऐसा प्रयोग कर रहे हैं उनको हम आमंत्रित किए हैं चर्चा के साथ चर्चा करने के लिए। दिल्ली और भारत के शहरों में एक अलग किस्म की चुनौती है, जिससे कि खेती के अवधारणा की तरफ लोग बढ़ रहे हैं। लेबनान, सीरिया और बाकी दूसरी जगहों पे अलग किस्म की चुनौतियां हैं, जहां शहरी कृषि का प्रयोग हो रहा है। लेकिन उसका जो सेंट्रल इशू है कि शहर के लोग कैसे आत्मनिर्भर बन सकते हैं और वो चुनौतियों से कैसे बाहर निकल सकते हैं। वो चुनौती कई तरह के हो सकते हैं। वो चुनौती कारपोरेट का हो सकता है, वो चुनौती किसी दूसरे देश पे निर्भरता खत्म होने की हो सकता है। इसलिए सबका हम स्वागत करते हैं आज की मीटिंग में, और कोशिश हम लोग करेंगे कि सिर्फ बातचीत सुने ही नहीं, बल्कि जो लोग इसमें सहभाग कर रहे हैं वो अपने प्रश्न भी इसमें डालें और उसका जवाब भी हम लोग खोलेंगे। तो मैं अपनी बात यहीं समाप्त करता हूँ, और निशांत इसका अनुवाद करेंगे अंग्रेजी में, उसके बाद फिर आगे की प्रक्रियाएं चलेगी। धन्यवाद।
Just to translate it quickly, Rajendra Ravi welcomed everyone, and he said, agriculture is happening in different parts of the world, but this discussion we are hosting as PRC to know more about it. PRC has started working on these issues primarily to discover and build new frameworks for cities and urban development. As we know, for example, Indian government is pushing for smart cities and such technocratic initiatives. In contrast to that, we are trying to develop and pushing for an idea such as a self-reliant city or similar things. Um, we have been discussing these things on different forum, but we have now also started talking about the practitioners, just to show that there are actual practices which are contesting the hegemonic idea of the urbanization that we see, and there are already very good practices going on. So just to present those to social movements, to different kinds of citizen groups, that work we have started doing. And this activity is also kind of part of this ongoing initiative, uh, where we have invited people from different parts of global south to share their experiences and their knowledge on urban agriculture. Also, that India has different challenges as compared to any other geographical region. But if we look at it, there is a core drive in all these projects, which is self-reliance, to stop the dependence on corporates, to resist the corporatization, and to stop the dependence on others. That is the core of it. which we are trying to achieve in all these projects. I think that's where he ended, and he welcomed everyone. Now, I think it's over to Madhuresh.
So now, Avikal, will you
book release.
the book release of some of the booklets? These are the booklets we have prepared during course of our research, and
Yeah.
also there is a booklet on Cuba which we have just reproduced. Thank you, Avikal. Do you have anything else on this?
That's all. That's all for now. Yeah.
Thank you.
दोनों क्यूबा वाली दोनों बुकलेट
You have that
Link मेरे साथ share नहीं हुआ है अभी, तो
Okay.
maybe towards the end we can do.
Okay. So we have
Just to add, all these booklets and the Cuba booklet, and there's so many recent publications on urban agriculture that we have published. So just to squeeze the time, we're not showing everything. You can find that on the website, and I have provided the link prcindia.in/publications, and you can find those.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So now we will, and I think Nishant will talk about some of the issues which have come from which are covered in these booklets when he makes his presentation towards the end. Now we'll hear from Ansar. Over to you, Ansar.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really happy for this invitation, and thank you for also giving us the chance to have this conversation today. First of all, in case you see me all of the time talking on the phone, I'm also parallelly translating from English to Arabic for Abdullah, and also later I will translate from Arabic to English for you. So please don't be astonished. So thank you for having me as a co-moderator today. And now I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a second. Let's hope it works out as I hope. So yes, okay, perfect. So the picture you see here is a picture that I immediately associate when I think of seeds of resistance and hope. This picture is from Syria, from the city of Erbil, 2017. And this was a time when the city was besieged by different hegemonic powers, so by the state and also the state supported by international powers such as Russia. And people were completely left alone and also confronted with huge violence. So this picture for me today really shows that even in the, if you have this kind of destruction, you can have someone like the person you see, who is actually a football player, becoming in this situation an urban farmer. And also, as Madhuraj had contextualized it earlier in the context of Syria, where people actually started urban farming in the context of a popular revolution. To do farming while you're bombed is also a way to preserve dignity and to resist not only to the siege that is laid upon you, but also to resist this kind of violence that destructs life, because they're creating life. So this is just like a little impression, also picture-wise, when it comes to Syria, because we are always just associating, which is also important, we associate a lot of violence because this violence is happening and we need to also recognize this. But nevertheless, this should never cover the kind of resistance we have there. So the conversation today is also really important for the four of us being invited here. As people sitting here, we can actually not come together due to the political borders and the political reality dividing the countries. On the one side, due to historical reasons, so colonialism, and in a bit I will also show you a map. So colonialism that has divided this area in East Asia, but also we should, of course, never release the local elites of these countries from responsibility, because they, in the post-colonial period, they rather fortified colonial divisions. The best example to give here is from Lebanon and Syria, where you have elites that continue to be under rule since the post-colonial period, so since the 50s and 60s until today, and they really have this claim of being the ruling power forever. Despite that, the popular masses in these countries again and again have risen up in the 80s, but also now recently, as you might be aware, that since 2010 and 11, again and again, huge protests have actually happened in these countries. And especially when it comes to Lebanon, we will also hear a quite recent example of the connection between these protests and the role of farming and urban farming here. So it's really important to keep this context in mind when we think about our conversation today. So wait, next slide. Okay, so this is the area we talk about. Actually, it was not so easy to find a map where we would all feel comfortable with. So this part in red, it's actually what was historically called the Fertile Crescent. And it covers here the area of Iraq, parts of Iran, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. And now, again, if we juxtapose this kind of to the to the idea of colonialism, so that colonialism divided this, we also see actually how much this opposes this natural development of the area, where it's been said that modern agriculture had started around 10,000 years ago. So this is also a kind of heritage we can refer to. However, there's actually also some irony to this, because the countries we will talk about today, so Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria, are today countries that actually heavily rely on food imports. Here is now a map where you can see it a little better. wait, no, like this, which countries we talk about. And I'm really sorry, actually, I cannot right now pinned with my, I cannot show you as I'm opening it from another device, I cannot link which country I'm talking about. I don't know whether anyone has access to my presentation, because then you can please show which country I'm talking about. So on the one hand, we have Syria, which is the biggest of the countries we'll talk about today, and also Lebanon and Palestine. Palestine historically has huge challenges in the context we talk about today due to the settler colonial state of Israel having occupied the land. So we will mainly talk about today, I guess, but Lina will tell us more about West Bank, which is under the control of the Palestinian authorities. Then, yes, we will have this later. So this is a little the broad context. So on the one hand, we talk about a country that has the challenge of continuing colonialism, Palestine. We have Syria, a country that has to struggle not only with a 10-year long war. The war is, of course, situated in a historical context, which is the dictatorship since 63 and more brutally since the 70s. And in Lebanon, we also have the challenges that it's a country that is run by different politicized sectarian elites that also recently wanted to crush a popular uprising. Each of them will give us more details about what is happening concretely, and I will try to also give additions whenever it's possible. And I would now stop screen sharing. 1 second, I have to find out where I do this. Okay. So now you see me. Very good. So sorry for this. Yeah. So I would now ask Lina to start, and I'm really curious to hear from her. Madurash already introduced her, so I will not repeat that. And yeah, please, Lina, go ahead.
So hello, everyone. I'm extremely happy to be part of this group. It's actually a pleasure to talk to an Indian audience about Palestine. And I'm happy that I'll be doing so. My name is Lina Ismail, and I'm from Palestine. And I live in what is called now the West Bank in a city called Ramallah. And we'll be talking a bit about the seeds of resistance and hope in Palestine. So we'll give you a bit of context about Palestine, the colonial context, but we'll not go further into this because we want to talk about hope today. So let's start by sharing the screen. Can you see it? Okay. Is this okay?
Yes, perfect.
Good. So we're going to talk about food sovereignty in Palestine and what does food sovereignty mean in our colonial context. I'll share with you a very famous map of Palestine. If you can see the different maps over the years, starting with 46 and ending with 2000. The green is, let's say, all of it is Palestine. And what you see in the green part, starting from 1946, is the Palestinian area, and then the Jewish land. What happened is that before 46, there was an influx of Jews into Palestine due to the World War. As the population grew, and this, with the Zionism idea of having, getting this Palestinian land, a land without people for people without land, they started planning to take over Palestine. And in 1947, there was a UN partition plan, as you can see in the second picture, proposed by the UN, where the Jews would take actually more land while they are less population than the Palestinian one. Palestinians refused this partition plan, and thus happened the war, what we call now is catastrophe, which happened in 48. We call it Nakba. Nakba means the expulsion of the Palestinian people from their own land. What you see from 1948 to 1967 is the establishment of what is now called Israel. We call it the 48 land, and leaving the right part and the left part. The right part is what we call now is the West Bank, and the left part is Gaza. Moving to 2000, the picture of 2000, in 1990s, 94, 93, a peace agreement was signed, it's called Oslo. Among it is the establishment of the state of Palestine along with the state of Israel. Unfortunately, it's not happening. We are still under occupation. We are still under colonization, even though we entered this agreement and we are bound by it, by international law. But what you can see is that these green spots in the right side, in the West Bank, I can show you, I think you can see my mouse. So these are the boundaries of the West Bank, and within it, you can see the green. The green part is the rest of the Palestinian part under the Palestinian Authority. So there is an establishment of a Palestinian Authority in both Gaza and the West Bank. But what you can see is most of the West Bank is still taken and is still under colonization by Israel. And even in this green spots, you will find settlements in there. What we mean by settlements is Israeli Jewish settlements expanding in Palestine, taking over land, stealing lands, stealing agricultural lands, stealing our resources, and expanding as we speak. So there's no peace plan, there's no peace. We're still under colonization as we speak. There are two, it's also important to mention that there are two Palestinian authorities now. One in the West Bank, it's the Palestinian Authority, and in Gaza, it's Hamas. Therefore, there's also a separation in both Palestinian, community. What you will see in the right side is only a map of the West Bank, and what's in the red line is what we call the apartheid separation wall. So as they divided and took over the West Bank, they built a wall around this, huge, bigger than the Berlin Wall, and expanded it throughout the West Bank, taking over more of the West Bank areas and also the water and agricultural resources there. So it's occupation mainly to take land and to control resources and to control people. I would like to read, this is the slide where the most of the writing happens. No more slides will be like that, but it's from an initiative called Saqiya, and it's about art, science, and agriculture. And it explains a bit about what's happening with us. The loss of Palestinian land and associated with the Israeli occupation is not only measured in lost area, but also in lost tradition, lost knowledge, and loss of cooperation. Over the course of the past half century, the rise of mortgages and a booming property market personal debt and clear loans have brought West Bank Palestinians into credit debt systems in larger and larger numbers. Simultaneously, building and development patterns have reorganized the land and its social relations away from the masha' means commons, lands, to individually owned and privately maintained land. The loss of cooperative labor comes along with the loss of knowledge, not just of agricultural techniques, but songs and stories, dances such as the folkloric dance dabke, and the call and response singing of zajal, and the acts of teaching and learning themselves. So we are losing not only our land, but our tradition, our connectedness to the land, our identity. And as Ansar mentioned, it's an agrarian society, Palestine. And when you lose contact with your own land, then you start disconnecting even mentally from it. So to sum up, not only the colonization is the umbrella and is the part of the bigger player of losing our land and thus also changing our agricultural patterns, but also we have neoliberal economy, which is the introduction of agribusinesses, the commodification of food. And as you know, as all of you know it, what agribusinesses are doing into our land. It's huge areas. They use exported techniques. It's not based on indigenous knowledge. They export seeds as well as chemicals to control the land and to produce. The food here becomes commodified. It's not a connection with the land, and it's not a way of living. Comes with it is the conditional international aid. With the signing of the agreement, the Oslo Agreement in the 1990s, there was an influx of conditional international aid into Palestine to support the establishment of the Palestinian Authority, to help in the development of the nation. But then what is the development that we're seeking? We're first seeking liberation, then development. So all this kind of conditional international aid comes with their own agendas to implement, and I'm sure it's happening with all parts, even in Syria and Lebanon and in India, with such international projects coming in, imposing their own agenda for sometimes export-oriented products for their own good, or to control the market in a way or another. So this is another layer that we're facing in terms of food production. And then comes the last one is the lack of vision of the Palestinian Authority, which is a Palestinian Authority, but really has no authority over the land since we are under colonization. There's still a lack of vision in terms of strategies to support small-scale farmers, who we consider are as defenders of the land, the frontline defenders of the land. I'll give you a small example here. So the Palestinian Authority approved this project coming from the international aid agencies of production of baby cucumbers in an area in the West Bank. It's a big area. What it does is that these cucumbers are planted within that area, on a huge area, taking out the water resources that are scarcely available for Palestinians, and then all the goods are exported to, unfortunately, Israeli factories for pickling. So you will find this kind of complex situation where in the end, the Palestinian farmer is the loser here. And this is promoted under the economic empowerment of farmers. To move on to a more lighter side, let's say, I'm just showing these two pictures. I'm sorry, it's not that clear, but on the right-hand side, you know what industrial agriculture means and the import of chemicals and so on. But on the left, you will see part of Palestine. It's called Batir village. And it is where how traditional Palestinian agriculture is being practiced. It's small plots of land. The terraces are a way of regaining more water, harvesting more water, and you would find diversity. This is how our traditional agriculture is. I'm gonna skip the impact of industrial agriculture because I think we all know it. So this brings us to why we want to talk about food sovereignty. Food sovereignty means it's the right of people to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems. It puts the aspiration, needs, and livelihoods of those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of food systems and policies rather than demands of markets and corporations. Therefore, we see as Palestinians, food sovereignty is possible. We have to start by practicing food sovereignty. It is a right and it is a practice where we use our own local resources, harvest our own water in order to produce. Self-sufficiency is the main element that helps us in our struggle to freedom, in our march to freedom. So we see this as a pillar of moving forward. When some people start talking to us about, okay, so if you are colonized, how does it happen to have food sovereignty? It happens. It starts with your own home. It starts with the community and spreads around. And when you are able to produce your food, you are able to resist even colonization and occupation. So how to do this, and how to achieve food sovereignty? We believe in in agroecology as a method to do so. Agroecology depends on locally natural material that are around us. It depends on people's knowledge and labor and traditional knowledge. It supports the direct interaction between farmers and consumers. It brings back the social fabric and the culture that and our identity. So as you can see from the definitions here of agriculture, we find it as the main pillar of food sovereignty. Here I'm talking about a growing movement in Palestine on agroecology, and I'll give you some examples. First of all, agroecology depends on 5 main pillars. It's how to take care of the soil in order to, it will take care of us and with food production. Number 2 is the naturally available resources, water, sun, and air. Third one is human being and knowledge. 4 is straw, plant cover, and 5 is the local or heirloom seeds. You can see in the picture here is this is a local tomato, Palestinian tomato produced here. Okay, so we're talking about urban, also agriculture, and a rural setting. Just to remind all of us that an urban agriculture is not something new in our area. It has been happening over our years. It's our way of living. So it has been, urban gardening has been traditionally part of the Palestinian urban society. I'm sure as same as in Syria and in Lebanon. I think in India as well. Please let me know if it's so, but I'm sure that South communities used to have their gardens as well. This picture on the right is my parents' and grandparents' home, where you could find diversity and a number of trees in a very, very small plot of land. The 2 ones on the left are from a building that is under demolition order in the municipality of Ramallah. It's not because of the colonization, it's because of our tendency to sell these kind of small homes to a bigger investor who will just demolish everything and come up with a big building. Also, agroecology in urban settings, talking about home gardens that are new. These are the old ones, but newly, this is an apartment building that I live in, and we agreed with our neighbor to plant downstairs. It's very small. It's around 100 square meters, and we were able to plant in it and produce. And this is how it looks like: cucumbers and tomatoes and eggplants. This was last year, but unfortunately this year, the owners decided to take it. But again, in a workspace, in urban agriculture, in a workspace, this is my workspace actually. In my work, I work at a community foundation called Dahlia, and we started also applying agroecology in our small spaces, as you can see. In schools, in our projects as well. This is also in my work in the community foundation. We encourage school students to start planting and to come up with solutions that are really fitting to their community. So they decided to start learning how to plant in urban spaces. And we have also agricultural initiatives like farms in urban spaces, like this beautiful farm. It's called a darb. It was rented from a school, and They are all university students, and they decided that this is the way forward, this is the way to protect the land, and to start this kind of reconnecting with the land, with starting to plant. So as you see, these are raised beds that they are making using agroecological methods, so no chemicals, local seeds, and labor. In rural setting, we have this village in the down south. It's called Raboud village. And due to our colleague and what we call him father of agroecology, Saad Dagher, he started promoting agroecology since 20 years. And now it's gaining momentum and as a movement happening. So he started training with an organization, women in this village in Raboud. The village now produces, like most of its women, our household women, are producers of clean, chemical-free products. It is turning to a chemical-free agriculture, all of the village, because women are mainly the ones who are producing. You'll find on the far right here, Bayan. Bayan is the youngest agroecological farmer in Palestine. We call her that, and we're proud of her. And they started participating in exhibitions, as you can see, and starting producing and pickling from their own food, and they're gaining, exposure. Also, in rural settings, you have farms such as Suleiman. It works on a CSA model, community-supported agriculture model, which means that you buy your share prior to the season because you share the risk between you and the farmer, the consumer and the farmer. You buy it prior to the season, and a weekly basket is delivered to your doorstep. What you don't see here, or what you will see here, is this part of it. It's a settlement. It's an Israeli colony in the West Bank, in the village of Bil'in, right in front of this liberated land. This is part of a liberated land. The owner gave it for free, 5-year rent free, for a couple of youth enthusiasts who want to bring back agriculture and this kind of connection to agriculture. And they started producing using CSA model. They're called Suleiman farm, and it's that close to a settlement. And if you cannot see is the separation wall, the apartheid wall around this. We cannot enter this area at all. We are forbidden to do so. And this was taken. This part was taken from Bil'in village, and it was by lawsuits and these kind of weekly marches. In Bil'in area, there are very famous marches, then that they were able to get this land back. Another example of agriculture in rural settings, this is Iman from Nasariya village in the Jordan Valley. In the Jordan Valley, there's a huge influx, there's a huge use of chemicals, unfortunately, and like not the conventional farming, but the chemical farming, chemical intensive farming and monocropping. Iman with her woman group started planting, and they were laughing at her at the beginning.
Lina,
but
sorry. Can you speak a little slow? The translators are trying to catch up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll be slower. How much time do I have left?
Take 5 more minutes. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, great. So we have this Iman from Nasariya village in Al Ghor, which is the Jordan Valley area. It's a rich area. It used to be called the food basket area, and now is heavily, unfortunately, introduced with chemical agriculture. Iman started her way by starting to plant a small area using agroecological methods, and farmers were laughing at her, around her. She was the only woman in the area, and the male farmers were looking at her and telling her that she will not be able to produce much with this kind of farming. She didn't listen to them. She pursued this, although she was hesitant, and her father was the first one who was just against it, this way of farming. She proved that she could be productive. The farm was very productive in a way that there was one harvest season of potatoes. So in agroecology, we use straw as a covering of the plant. all the farmers did not cover the potatoes, but Iman did so using this agroecological method, and the frost came in. All the harvest was devastated apart from Iman's harvest. So then everyone came to her and asked her what she was doing, and then she started getting more and more attention. Now also organizations are coming to her and giving her more land to train for more farmers on agroecology. She is a leader in her area, and we're so proud of her. Okay, so we're also talking about grassroots action. So we need farming in rural areas, we need farming in urban areas, but we also need a movement. It's part of a holistic action towards achieving food sovereignty. I'm gonna give you just a couple of examples about also community initiatives and grassroots actions that are happening in parallel with the farms to create this kind of movement. There's this on your far left, the Palestine Heirloom Seed Library, which is started by this woman, Vivian Sansour. And it's a Palestinian seed library that collects indigenous seeds and propagates them. And she managed to bring back what we call this kind of black wheat variety, or we call it Abu Samra. And it is known that in Palestine, where it's the original strain of wheat came out thousands and thousands of years ago. So Vivian is getting back this kind of indigenous seed, and as well a certain type of melon. On your right, you will see Manjala. It's another community initiative, and it's about culture and agriculture and connection to the land. Here they are getting a part of the city, as you can see here. And they are planting using guerrilla methods, meaning that you find a piece of land, an empty piece of land, and you go and plant it, whether it's privately owned or municipality owned. As long as no one is taking care of it, they are planting it. And in the end, leaving it if the owner would ask for it, but at least they are planting it. This is Manjala. There's the Palestinian Agroecological Forum that I am part of as a volunteer, and it was established 2 years ago, and it's about spreading the message of and philosophy practices of agroecology and showcasing its role in achieving food sovereignty. In the pictures here, you will find Saad Dagher, he's our mentor. He is giving a talk about agroecology, so it's also raising awareness. On the picture next to it is making seed balls, where we go and throw it in nature and promote diversity in this way. On the one underneath it, where I'm putting my cursor, we are volunteering with a home garden to support how to make a raised bed, how to plant on agroecological way, and then the water harvesting on your far right, using like water retention landscape, like small manual labor, smaller dams, to slower the the running of water in order to be absorbed in the soil, feed the aquifers, and regain our, let's say, our water resources. That is apart from controlling it by the Israeli Authority. They cannot own the water coming from the sky. So we have to make the best use of the rainwater. The last one that I'll be talking about today, even in Seeds of Hope, is Sharaka. It's a volunteer group that aims to support small-scale farmers and preserve traditional agricultural heritage through farmer markets, as you can see here, through awareness raising about certain types of drying fruit and food. There's this also, we hold certain events where we cook food in order to promote this kind of farmers markets, and also as a way of us to income generate for supporting farmers market, and here also is supporting in harvest. So this poster was painted in the 80s by a painter, and what you see in Arabic is translated in English. We produce fight and continue our march with determination. Here you will find production and farming along with fighting and resistance and steadfastness on the land. This is our model. This is how we should move forward in order to be able to be liberated at some point. I'll show you this picture, which I love. It's the Palestinian Museum in a place near my city. And it's about also folkloric and cultural dancing, along with planting the area of all natural biodiversity and also our olive tree that is, and that's it. Thank you very much. And sorry for being long or being fast.
Thank you so much, Lina. I would just ask you one question and then we'll continue. Maybe you can share with us, I mean, you now shared with us so many great examples of resistance in the field of agriculture and urban farming. But we also know from the other countries, and also as we had heard from our conversation with the People's Resource Center earlier, that there's also a discourse on urban agriculture that is completely disconnected from this aspect of politics and resistance. So how is the conversation in Palestine? Like, is it rather that you have the feeling you're actually now gaining the dominant discourse through this, or is it still really a strong struggle? And also considering who is participating in the projects with you, as you had mentioned, students, and so on, but maybe you can also just give us a brief idea on other marginalized, I mean, in the context of Palestine, generally you're marginalized through the occupation, but also within these structures about other marginalized groups of the population and how they participate in this.
So I've mentioned both in rural and in urban setting. When I mentioned about Iman, the last farm, it is an area where it is marginalized and heavily controlled by the Israeli occupation. This Jordan Valley is also under threat of confiscation and annexation as we speak now. And in terms of urban agriculture, it is connected with political. So what we talked about in terms of different initiatives, I'm not running all of them. I'm just talking about them. And the farm that started at Darb with the students, the university students, it came about from an ideology of freedom and liberation. It's not coming out from, I want to live off of it, or I just want to start a new thing, or it is trendy, or it is organic. It started from an ideological belief that this is the way that we should be liberated. We produce our own food. And also it should be locally produced. It should use our own local seeds, and it should be chemical free. So the health benefit comes with it. Also the social connectedness, as you could see them coming as a group and forming this kind of relationship. And then when marketing their produce, you get in direct contact with them and you hear their stories. This is how you bring back this kind of social connectedness and values. So yes, it is tied to the political context, that's for sure. But what's dominated now, even in our Palestinian Authority context, is that we are struggling to start convincing them that this is the way forward. So we're trying also to start dialogue with the government and with the Ministry of Agriculture, saying, please stop getting more pesticides and getting more seeds from abroad. Listen to us. There's a movement that is growing on the ground. Listen to us and start looking and seeing what the farmers are doing on the ground, and support this with your own strategies and policies. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for this. I'm really touched, because it seems like as you said, like there can be a lot of hope, and it's great to see that it's coming, that this resistance is really coming from the bottom, as I think all of us truly believe that this is the only way how resistance will work. So we will now, you see my screen, right? So wait, we will now travel. So we were here in Palestine, and now we will travel to Syria. So this area here. And I'm happy that we will now listen to Abdullah, and he will talk with us on an area that is based in or is part of Damascus. He is going to talk with us on this area. And I show you this map from Google Earth to make one thing quite clear. You can actually really see that this is a completely urban area. Like there's nothing green. Whereas like historically, these are the gardens of Damascus. And you can also see how the city really is encroaching these gardens and also kind of thereby destroying their own resources. So this is the view from above. If we would take a look closer, we would actually also see that most of this area is by now completely destroyed, as it was as the kind of resistance that people did there was answered really violently by the Syrian state. So I'm curious to listen now to Abdullah, on the to hear from him from the view from below. During the time of the Syrian revolution, so 2011 and ongoing. And yeah, Abdullah, you have the word, and he will speak in Arabic, and I'll translate consecutively. So yeah.
اوكي اول شيء بحب اشكر اللجنه المنظمه واشكر لينا على البرزنتيشن اللي كتير عظيم. صعبت المهمه علي يا لينا. خلوني أبلش أول شيء أحكي بفكرة سريعة جدا عن اللي عم بيصير بسوريا لحتى أقدر أحكي على تجربتنا بمجال العمل الزراعي. ب 2011 كان في بلشت الثورة السورية ضد النظام السوري. الهدف الأساسي من هذه الثورة هو إسقاط النظام وبناء نظام ديمقراطي. استخدم النظام السوري كل الأسلحة المشروعة والغير مشروعة ضد الشعب السوري في محاولة للسيطرة على الحراك وتقليم أظافر الثورة السورية، يعني التخلص من الثورة. أحد هاي الأساليب كانت الحصار.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for organizing this event, and also thank you for Lina for this presentation, although she made it now quite hard for him to follow up on this. So first of all, he wants to give an input on the context of Syria, where 2011, an uprising against the dictatorship was starting, and the uprising had in mind to replace the dictatorship with a democratic people-run movement. And the Syrian regime answered to this violently, using many different weapons, even those that are internationally prohibited. And one of the weapons used against the people's uprising was the method of siege. So a siege, just for those that are not familiar with it, means to really sealing off a whole area, not allowing anyone to come in or to get out. So completely restricting food access and the freedom of movement.
الحصار تم فرضه على تقريبا 50 منطقة داخل سوريا. عدد اللي تأثروا بالحصار بشكل مباشر ما يقارب 1,000,000. المناطق اللي تم حصارها مو كلياتها مناطق زراعية أو فيها أراضي زراعية. جزء من هاي المناطق هي مناطق مدنية ما فيها أي نوع من أنواع الزراعة، وهذا الشيء مثل مخيم اللي يرموك المكان اللي بدي أحكي فيه عن تجربتنا.
More than 50 areas in Syria were besieged, and Yarmouk, the place Abdullah is from, is only one of them. And this meant that over 1 million people were actually forced to live in starvation. And not all of the areas that were besieged were agriculture areas. It was different. Many of them were urban areas like his area.
مخيم اليرموك هو يعني مخيم للاجئين الفلسطينيين موجود بجنوب العاصمة دمشق. مساحة المكان 1 كيلومتر مربع، تعداد السكاني ما يقارب 400,000. اللي عانوا من الحصار تقريبا 30,000. كان في عندنا إشكالية كتير كبيرة للتعامل مع هذا الحصار. أحد الوسائل اللي يعني أنتجناها بفترة الحصار هو الزراعة داخل المدينة.
So the place Abdullah is from is called Yarmouk. It's actually a refugee camp for Palestinian refugees that had to flee when the state of Israel was set up in 48. And in Yarmouk, 400,000 people used to live there, and 30,000 people were exposed to the siege because the others had already fled. During the siege, they developed different ways of resistance, and one of the ways was agriculture.
طبعا اللي شايفينه هلا بالصورة هو المكان الوحيد أو المساحة الخالية الوحيدة اللي كانت موجودة بمخيم اليرموك، وهذا كان ملعب كرة القدم اللي داخل المخيم. نتيجة إغلاق المنطقة بشكل كامل تحول لمكب للنفايات، لأنه ما كان في عندنا مكان نتخلص من النفايات، ونتيجة اشتداد الحصار وعدم توفر الطعام نظفنا هذا المكان وحولناه لأرض زراعية، أول مشروع زراعي داخل المخيم.
بس عبد الله نحن ما يعني نحن بنشوف كل الصور، هيك تقصد أو بدك تورجي
لا
صورة
ليش
معينة؟
كل الصور عم تشوفوا؟
أوكي.
لازم تشوفوا بس الصورة اللي
إيه لا ما بعرف ارجع افتحه يمكن. Okay, so Abdullah actually meant to show us only one picture, I think number one. So it's not really really small because the screen sharing is not really working. So yep. لا لسه بس كلهم. What he's saying is that this, what you see on the picture right now was the only space in Yarmouk that was actually not where you didn't have a building. So what they and this space was a football stadium earlier before the siege. And then during the siege, you have actually another problem. You have the problem that people still live together. People still also produce garbage. So the football stadium was turned into a garbage dump. And then when the starvation started and it was clear that the siege won't only last a short time, because you never know that, no one tells you, oh, the siege will last for years. But when they realized that this is a long-term reality, they started cleaning this garbage dump and tried to turn it into a garden. عبد الله المركز بيقدروا يشاركوا هذا هلا من عندك ولا من عندهم؟
ما بعرف. طلع؟
اوكي سكر وهن بيشاركوا. ايه طلع
هيك هلا عم بقلب معناته انا.
لا هلا ما بقدر اشوف. اوكي then انت وقف السكرين شيرينج. اوكي then maybe Avikal, you can share the pictures because it just
I'll do that.
Yes, okay, perfect. And he will continue. Okay, Abdullah, تفضل.
اوكي ممكن كنا فكرنا كان هذا المكان الوحيد اللي موجود داخل المخيم واللي حاولنا نحوله لمكان زراعي. الإشكالية الكثير كبيرة اللي كنا عم نواجهها يحط ميوت عم بسمع حالي.
اوكي سوري.
انه اول شيء ما كان في عندنا نزول كافيه، ما كان في عندنا الموارد الاليات والاشياء اللي لازم لحتى نحول هذا المكان لاراضي مكان صالح للزراعه. فأنتم زي ما بتشوفوا في الصورة في جرافة موجودة بهذا المكان. فهذا الجرافة تم استخدام وقود نحن سويناه داخل المكان، اللي هو إعادة تدوير البلاستيك. يعني جمعنا كل شيء بلاستيك موجود في المكان وحرقناه وحولناه لمازوت واستخدمناه بهاي الجرافة لحتى نقدر ننظف التربة ونزرعها.
Please continue
صار ميوت.
creating an echo. That's why I had to stop because the screen sharing. We'll come back.
ميوت.
Shall I make the screen sharing? Maybe then we don't have the problem because I talk at the same time.
Yes.
Okay, then I'll do that.
Is it fine now? I'm sorry.
Yes, now it's fine. Okay, perfect. So he's saying that when they wanted to turn this garbage dump into a garden, and you can see on this picture also the first steps, there were actually several challenges because they were an urban area. So they did not have any seeds. They didn't have farming tools. And also the small device you'll see in the tractor, you will see in the coming pictures. You might ask yourself, okay, this one, okay, where did they get the fuel from? So what they actually did is they collected the plastic from all over the camp. And due to the shelling, there were, for example, the water tanks people have there on the rooftops were constantly broken. So what they did is that they then heated the plastic, and through this way, they actually managed to reproduce a form of benzene they could use to use the tractor. So they actually had to do a full process in order to be able to plant this plot of land. Continue. كمل.
وطبعا لأنه ما كانت هاي المساحة كافية طبعا لتوفير الغذاء اللازم لأهالي المخيم، فحاولنا ندعم مشاريع صغيرة بحيث إنه السكان المحليين داخل المخيم فين يزرعوا جنب بيتن أو حتى على السطح. كانت نحن مهمتنا كمؤسسة موجودة داخل المخيم هي نقل التربة لهي الناس وتوفير التمديدات اللازمة للسقاية بالإضافة لتوفير البذار الضرورية. ففيه يقلب بالصورة آخر شيء ببين.
Yeah. You can also show some of the other pictures, and he's saying you might realize that the small plot of land is not enough in order to feed the 30,000 people that were living with us in this area. So we also tried to move some of the soil to the houses so that people could actually cultivate next to their houses and on the rooftops. And they would be responsible then to provide the soil and the water and so on to the, here on this picture you can see it. So it's really like you see it's city, and they just put the soil on the street kind of. And this was their way, like as a group of activists to support the local population by providing them with the soil and so on, because this was also not easy for people, even if they would have decided to plant, how should they? And this is actually a picture from a school. And this, I remember the guy, for example, that you see there, he was really keen on inventing his own organic fertilizers and organic pesticides and so on. Yeah, Abdullah, continue.
أحد المشاكل كتير كبيرة اللي كنا عم نواجهها بداية المشروع عدم توفر كمية كافية من المياه، لأنه النظام السوري كمان قطع مية الشرب عن مخيم اليرموك، فاعتمدنا على المية السوداء واللي هي مياه الصرف الصحي اللي كانت تمر من تحت المخيم جاي من مناطق سيطرة النظام. فميزت هاي المياه السوداء انه كانت كمان بتحمل بذار، لما كنا نسقي فيها الارض فبالاضافه للمحاصيل اللي احنا زارعينها كان يطلع محاصيل اضافيه كمان. هلا بتشوفوها بالصور، هاي ما كانت يعني جزء من خطتنا انه نزرعها، ولكن طلعت بشكل تلقائي.
So he's saying you will now see, another problem they had was actually that they didn't have enough water. Again, it's an urban area. It was never planned to be a garden. So they find a way how to open the sewage that was the sewage of Damascus. So of the capital that was next to them, but that was not under siege. And they started to use the sewage water. And you actually saw on the pictures now a watermelon. And he says there were things happening we hadn't planned for. So apparently this water also brought some other seeds with it. So they had all of a sudden watermelons, and this was not any of their plan during the siege, where it was about surviving to plant watermelons. But this is what the water brought to them.
عم تطلع الصور عندكم اصلا؟
Yeah.
اوكي، هاي جزء من الصور اللي كانت موجوده. هلا كمان فكان احد النقاط الاساسيه اللي كنا عم نواجهها، الاشكاليه الاساسيه انه المكان اللي كنا عم نزرع فيه اغلب المناطق هي متعرضه للقصف بشكل مستمر من قبل النظام والقنص، فهي ما كانت مناطق امنه للعمل يعني داخل الاراضي، فكنا غالبا نضطر انه نسقي او نزرع بالليل بفتره الليل لحتى نحمي الفلاحين تبعوتنا.
So another problem was that there was constant shelling, and so they could actually not work on the fields during the day, because then there would have been easy targets. So they started to do many of the farming at night.
هلا نحن كمان ما كنا فلاحين اساسا، يعني قبل ما تبلش الثوره السوريه داخل هذا المكان ما كان عندنا اي خبره بمجال العمل الزراعي، فاعتمدنا على المناطق المجاوره للمخيم واللي هن كانت مناطق زراعيه سابقا، فكان في فلاحين هناك وكان لسه عندنا خبره كافيه بهذا المجال، فهن اجوا باتجاه المخيم وساعدونا لحتى ناسس مشاريعنا الزراعيه ونطور فكره العمل الزراعي داخل المخيم.
And before the uprising, before the revolution in Syria, none of them were farmers. So they also did not have this knowledge. So what they did was that the neighboring areas to Yarmouk, they were also besieged, and some of them were former farmers. So before the city kind of encroached into the area and turned farming land into urban land. So they had this knowledge. So the activists could actually rely on these farmers to teach them. And this is how they then managed also to plant in Yarmouk.
طبعا تجربة الزراعة بمخيم اليرموك هي ما لها تجربة فريدة، أغلب المناطق اللي تحاصرت بسوريا كمان اشتغلت بنفس الطريقة. هلا الشيء المميز بالحالة إنه أساسا تجربة الزراعة بالسياق الفلسطيني كانت موجودة بفلسطين بفترة الانتفاضة الأولى، وكانت موجودة بالمخيمات الفلسطينية لبنان بفترة الحرب الأهلية وحرب المخيمات الفلسطينية. فموضوع يعني الزراعة داخل المخيمات هي جزء من المقاومة، زي ما كانت عم تحكي لنا، هي جزء من المقاومة الفلسطينية والصمود بوجه عملية الإحلال اللي عم تصير بالمجتمعات، يعني التخلص من فلسطين.
So he's saying that this was not, Yarmouk wasn't the only area that resisted through farming. There were many other areas, but there's also an important other aspect, and Lina had mentioned it. So how important farming is as a form of resistance. And you could see this not only today in Palestine, but also historically in 1987 to 91. There was an uprising in Palestine against the Israeli occupation. And this was a time where you had a lot of, where resistance again appeared in Palestinian society, and agriculture was part of it. So it's also often called like agro-resistance, for example. And he's saying, so historically, he refers to this. And you could see the same in the Palestinian camps in Lebanon during the war in Lebanon. So it's a kind of Palestinian heritage to refer to this kind of resistance, as the societies they live in tend to want to get rid of them through this kind of violence.
طبعا الحصار على مخيم اليرموك استمر لما يقارب 6 سنين. 182 شخص استشهدوا بسبب الجوع داخل مخيم اليرموك. اللي بدي احكيه انه العمل الزراعي داخل المخيم هو على اهميه هذا العمل. ما قدرنا حقيقه انه نحن نوقف موت الناس بسبب الجوع، لانه كان حصار كثير مطبق على المخيم، ولكن كانت احدى الادوات المتاحه اللي بين ايدينا. الفكره الاساسيه اللي حاب انوه لها انه مفهوم السياده الغذائيه واهميه الزراعه الحضريه لازم الناس تدرك هذا الموضوع قبل ما يصير في كارثه. بمعنى ما لازم نستنى دائما لحتى يصير كارثه بمدننا والمناطق اللي احنا عايشين فيها لحتى نعرف قديش الموضوع مهم بالنسبه لحياتنا.
So the siege of Yarmouk lasted for 6 years, and 192 people died of starvation, and they could not stop people from starving or even from dying with agriculture or urban farming. But it was one of the tools they had in their hands, so they had to use it. So when we want today talk about food sovereignty and urban farming as part of it, we have to really understand that this is a necessary tool and a claim we all need to push for, because we should never wait until the crisis happens as it happened with them. خلاص أو لا؟
لا أنا بس بدي أضيف شغلة، إنه جزء من الشخصيات اللي عم تشوفوهم هلا بالصور هن استشهدوا بحصار المخيم في القصف والقنص، فما كانت العملية يعني كانت تكلفة العملية كتير كبيرة علينا داخل المخيم.
So some of the people you could see on the pictures actually died during the siege due to the constant bombing or due to snipers targeting people from outside of the camp. So one also has to realize that that they really paid a hard price for everything that happened.
أساساً لما كنا مبلشين بالمشروع كنا خسرانين 4 من مؤسسين المؤسسة. يعني باللحظة اللي بلشنا فيه بالمشروع الزراعي كان في عنا 4 من المسؤولين اللي عم يشتغلوا معنا بالمجموعة خسرناهم كلياتنا أثر النظام السوري.
So when they started to work as activists, they embraced this kind of resistance. There were 4 people that were responsible for it, and all of them died through one of the violent tools of the Syrian regime. So be it bombing, sniping, or also the constant arrests that are happening.
Yeah, شكرا لكم.
Okay. So thank you very much. He's saying, so also from my side, thank you so much, Abdullah, for sharing this also really painful experience with us. It's especially painful considering that there, for now, only a recognition from us can be there. So from people that share the same struggle, as you know, as the war in Syria is continuing, and also these kind of killings are still continuing. So I think it's also from us really resistance to make these topics present in the discourse where it's so marginalized. So I also want to add just two things when it comes to the work in Syria and the resistance of the farmers. And I will show you quickly two pictures. Screen sharing. Here we go. Okay. So here in this picture, this is also a wonderful group. Some of us, also the people from Lebanon, are connected to. It's farmers that are today in the north of Syria. And they also really embraced the idea of agroecology. They are refugees, so they could not stay in the places they lived in. So they fled further north, and they right now set up a school in a refugee camp there, where they teach all these young children you see on the pictures about agroecology. So that's, I think, a really important point. They are all farmers, so it's not only about also, as Lina had said, about the urban areas, it's about how they also imagine their rural realities. And it's also a huge act of solidarity, because for them as farmers, they have these tools, and they want to share it with those that live in the camps, to also make them, to enable them, to empower them to resist through these tools. So this is, for example, one of the boards you have in the school, and it's really just tents. So you have also quite hard circumstances, they also developed videos, for example, and many other things to really make these, to make their cause more accessible to everyone else. They make discussion rounds with other farmers that are not yet convinced of agroecology, but that still think, through the provision of seeds and pesticides from outside, we will sustain. So it's also about really the work in the community, and to convince them. And again, this in the context of violent conflict. So that's just really, really, really impressive. So now we will travel again. So we were here in Syria, and now we travel here. I hope you see it. We travel here to Lebanon. So it's between Palestine and Syria. Yeah, this is one of the challenges, as it's kind of besieged from a country at war, and on the other hand, of the state of Israel. So I ask now Khaled to speak to us, and Khaled also will talk in Arabic, and Serge, who is with him in Lebanon, will translate. Yeah, please go ahead.
It's other way around. Serge will speak in Arabic and Khaled will translate.
way around.
شكرا مرحبا. عم يسمعونا؟
ما بعرف.
Serge, Khaled,
Hello?
can you start your presentations?
Yeah, we hear you.
اوكي. شرف كبير لنا اول شيء انه نتعرف عليكم جميعا، وخاصة بسوريا. عبد الله، تحية كبيرة لك ولجهودك.
خليني أترجمها. So it is a great honor for us to be with you guys.
Khaled, we are not able to hear you.
Can you hear us? Hello?
Yeah. Continue and try not to move the mobile too much.
Okay.
Then we hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Excellent. So Khaled was saying that it is an honor for us to be with you today. Thank you very much for all your efforts, and a big hello and lots of encouragement and power to Lina and Abdullah for what they have presented and what they are doing every day in their life.
أنا خالد حمود، مهندس معماري وناشط بيئي. كان عندنا تجربة ضد النظام اللبناني بال 2015 وقت اللي كان في خطة من الحكومة إنه يعملوا وقت كان في يعني مشكلة النفايات بلبنان، اقترحوا الحل.
My name is Khalid Hamoud. This is Khalid, I'm Sayaf. I am an architect. He is an architect. So I'm going to say it's a lot easier that way. And Khalid is an architect, and he had his first experience as an environmental and political activist. One of the first experiences were in 2015 when the Lebanese government, Lebanese regime was trying to take care in a way or another with the crisis of garbage. We had this garbage crisis in Lebanon.
كان الحل تبع الحكومة أنه ينقلوا نفايات بيروت وجبل لبنان اللي هن 3500 طن يومياً على الجبل، على سلسلة جبال لبنان الشرقية.
So the purpose, the idea of the government was to transfer 3,500 tons of garbage every day from the area of Beirut and Mount Lebanon, which is the western mountains of Lebanon, and transfer all of that to the area of the east of the Beqa in the anti-Lebanon. It's the eastern mountains.
والموقع اللي حددته الحكومة بسلسلة جبال لبنان الشرقية كان فوق نبع شمسين، اللي هو نبع مي بيشرب 70 بلدة تقريبا وبيشرب ريف دمشق.
So the area they chose to throw all this garbage was just above the water source of Shamsin, which is a big water source that feeds 70 villages in Lebanon, as well as part of the Damascus area.
أول شيء لما عرفنا بالخبر كنا تقريبا 3 أو 4 شباب وقفنا لحالنا بالطريق ودعينا الناس إنه مستحيل يمرق هذا المشروع لأنه مدمر للبيئة ومدمر، يعني حتى الموقع اللي اختاروه كان هو مصنف محمية بيئية.
So it began with 4 or 5 young people who stood in the road and blocked the road to inform about the danger of such a project, especially that the government chose an area which was registered as a protected natural area, a natural reserve.
ووقتها لما اعترضنا على هذا المشروع اكتشفنا وقتها انه في شيء اسمه اوليغارشية بلبنان اللي هو منظومة الحكم اللي هن ما في احزاب، الاحزاب كلها متفقة على يعني خلينا نسميهم هن مجتمع السلطة كلهم باحزابهم متفقين على انهم يعملوا هذا المطمر، فكان اول تحدي لنا ضد هيدي المنظومة كلها سوا.
So when we first started resisting this project, we discovered that there is no difference between the parties in Lebanon. They are all combined together in an oligarchy that divides all the deals between each other, and they were in power, and this is who we were facing against.
بعدين صرنا نشرح للناس انه شو خطورة هذا الموضوع، وجبنا خبراء هيدروجيولوجي وخبير بيئي وتعاوننا معهم وعملنا دراسات، واخذنا دراسات عملتها اليونايتد نيشن سنة ال60، واكتشفنا انه في خزان مياه جوفية ممتد تحت كل سلسلة جبال لبنان الشرقية.
So what we did was seek the help of specialists, environmental specialists, geophysicists, and hydrogeologists who actually did studies about the impact of such kind of project. and we based everything on studies made by the United Nations dating from the 60s, and we discovered that there is a big reserve of underground water reserve that spreads all through under the eastern mountains of Lebanon.
وطبعا مثل أي مجتمعات تانية خلق في مجتمع السلطة الناس المستفيدين من المشروع واللي صاروا يسوقوا للمشروع إنه هذا مشروع مهم لأهالي المنطقة ولحتى الناس توافق على المشروع. وطبعا نحن كان بدورنا إنه نقف ضدهم ونفهم الناس قد ايه خطورة هذا الموضوع.
So as it happens almost all the time, there were two voices, one that was trying to advocate for the implementation of this project and to tell people that it is good for the area and it's good for the community. And thus our mission was to actually inform of the danger of this project and its impact on the people.
وطبعا كمان مثل أي نظام عربي صرنا نتلقى التهديدات بالقتل وباستعمال السلاح ضدنا وبتلفيق التهم من تهم سياسية لتهم دينية لتهم يعني كل التهم الجاهزة المعروفة بالأنظمة العربية.
And as it happens in all the Arab regimes, we were faced with death threats, violent threats, use of weapons, and the use of any kind of intimidation that is usually used in our area of the world. The threats of religious backgrounds and all that kind of stuff.
وبعد شهر تقريبا يعني كنا 4-5 شباب بلشنا بالموضوع. بعدين صارت المنطقة كلها على امتدادها جميعا من مختلف الطوائف، من مختلف الأديان، من بعلبك للبقاع الأوسط لرشيا. كنا صرنا تقريبا إيد وحدة وعملنا تجمع كبير على الطريق ودعينا كل الناس المؤثرين بالمجتمع وكان رأيهم صار معنا تقريبا.
So after a month of struggle, the idea spread around, and people from all over the Bekaa, from the north of the Bekaa, Baalbek, to the south of the Bekaa, in Rashaya, everyone was agreeing with us that the project was dangerous. And then there were a lot of people that were able to block the roads and be present to protest this project.
واخر شيء بعثوا لنا من وزاره البيئه ووزاره الزراعه مختصين من عندهم، سموهم انهم هن مختصين بيئيين، وعملنا مناظره كبيره بالازهر. وطبعا لانه المفتي كان هو جزء من النظام، يعني دار الفتوى هو جزء من النظام، فطبعا كان رايه انه هو هذا المشروع كتير مهم. بس لما رحنا واخذنا معنا الخبراء تبعنا والناس مع ضد هذا المشروع، طبعا كانت كل نواب المنطقة ضدنا والمفتي ودار الفتوى. خلصنا من الاجتماع كان غير رأيه المفتي وصار انه لا لازم يوقف المشروع.
So what happened next was a public debate, and the Mufti, which is the highest Muslim cleric of the area, who was with the regime, who was with the government, and all the deputies, the members of parliament of the region, which are also with the regime, they were all they wanted to implement this disastrous project. But then we came with the experts, and we had all kinds of scientific arguments, which helped change the mind of the Mufti, and then things started going the other way.
ولما عملنا آخر تجمع اللي هو كان جامع جدا وكل الناس شاركت فيه، حتى الناس اللي كانوا عم بيعرضونا وعرفوا إنه المشروع خلص رح يوقف نزلوا معنا ولبسوا كنزاتنا. كنا نحن عملنا شيء مثل الموفمنت سميناها على الطريق، فكل الناس لبست نفس التيشيرت تبعنا وكلهم أيدونا ووقف المشروع. بس نحن ما وقفنا هون، ضلينا وعملنا حل. قلنا لهم إنه هذا الموضوع بينحل بمعمل فرز للنفايات بأناروبيك دايجستشن، وكملنا وعملنا مشروعنا.
So by that time everyone was agreeing that this project needs to be stopped, and we were we were many blocking the road, we were many present in the street, and even the people who were against us at first were now convinced that this was a better way to go, and they joined us, and they wore our clothes, if you wish. At this point, we called the movement al-Tariq, which means on the road. And the project was stopped, but we did not stop working. We were trying to prove and to implement another way, an alternative, cleaner way, which is a sorting plant with anaerobic digestion to get rid of the garbage.
وعملنا المشروع طبعا من تمويل خاص بيننا الشباب، ما أخذنا تمويل من أي جمعية ولا أي حدا دعمنا بشيء. بلشنا بمشروعنا، أنا عملت دراستي، عملت ديزاين للمكانات وعملت ديزاين للمعمل كله، وركبنا المعمل واشتغل المعمل وفرجيناهم إنه في حل وفينا نفرز النفايات ونستفيد منها، والمطمر أكيد مش حل.
So we started this sorting plant with very personal funding. We did not take money from anyone outside of each other. It was a few of us guys, and Khalid did the design and put all the mechanisms, wrote the whole thing, and the plant started working. And we proved that this was the best solution instead of just burying garbage in the mountains and polluting the area.
بدكم انه نعرض الصور يلي بعتون؟
ايه بليز، لانه
او لسه اوكي تماما اوكي
ما هيك ما بنعرف.
اوكي مدهوراج center, can you show the pictures that they sent before so we can enjoy them while they talk?
There's two parts. There's the pictures of Khalid first. Yes.
اوكي، هون بالصورة بشتورة، هيدي كانت من مظاهرة بساحة شتورة جمعت تقريبا من بعلبك لرشية ومختلف الديانات والطوائف، لأنه بلبنان بتعرفوا قدي بيسوقوا طائفيا للأشياء، فالناس كانت واعية وما كانت عم تفرق معها قصة طائفي أو دين.
So this picture is from a big demonstration we did in Shtura, which is kind of the door to the Bekaa, a door to the area. And this demonstration, it included people from all over the place, from the north to the south. And in Lebanon, we have this big problem of confession of religion, and usually the regime uses it to divide. But in this demonstration, people from all religions were all there together, fighting for one cause, and they were smart not to get driven into that kind of bullshit.
فيها تغير.
Yes, we can.
وهيدي كمان هيدي آخر مظاهرة كانت تقريبا على مدخل مجد العنجر.
So this is the last demonstration. It was at the entrance of the village of Majd al-Anjar, where the project was supposed, the waste project was supposed to be implemented, and it was stopped there. And we can move on, please, to the next picture.
وهون المعمل اللي عملناه بالجبل.
So these are the pictures of the sorting plant, the sorting facility that the guys did in the mountains on the border between Lebanon and Syria. Next, please.
This picture، هيدي الصورة هي بال 2019 لما تعرفنا على سيرج وبلشنا بمشروع زراعي صغير كمان، طبعا بدون استخدام الكيميكالز، وسيرج كان له الدور الكبير. هون سيرج مبين بالصورة كمان.
So this picture is from 2019 actually. It was during the big movements, what we call the revolution of October in Lebanon. And this is in the tent. You can probably, you can see all of us. Like Khalid is on the left, I think, and me, I'm on the right.
Ferdi.
Yeah, this and Ferdi, which is. Can you go back? Yes, there's Ferdi and Luca on the far right, and then there's me. And Khalid is on the other side, just behind the heater, I think. And this was a meeting we did. This is the first time I met Khalid. And this was the meeting we did to talk about agroecology and talk about food sovereignty and the importance of it, because we were seeing the beginning the crisis in Lebanon, which we will talk about later. And from this meeting, one project was born, which was a collective garden that Khalid and his group in Majd al-Anjar started, which was an agroecology summer garden, and they produced vegetables all summer.
وهودي صور من 2015 كمان كانوا طبعا عم بزتوا علينا مسيل وهيك وعم.
So this picture is from 2015 when we were doing the protests in Beirut, and this is when we had the clashes with the police and they were throwing tear gas and bullets at us, and these are the guys trying to fight back. You can see Khalid almost in the middle wearing white, throwing a rock on the right. Yes, a little bit. Yeah, this is Khalid. This is from 2015. We can go to the next one, please.
وهيدي كمان من الصور من المظاهرة لما اجتمعنا كمان هون كبر عددنا ما بطلنا بس 4-5 شباب بس هاد كنا كمان من نفس البلدة كلنا تقريبا.
So this is from the protests against the waste being thrown in the mountain, the waste dump. And this is when people from the village were starting to be actually very involved and taking part of the protest.
حتى الناس صارت تشارك معنا، حتى المغتربين صاروا يشاركوا يصوروا صور مكتوب عليها اشياء ضد المطمر ويبعثوا لنا اياها، والناس يعني حتى الاولاد كل المجتمع صار مشارك معنا.
So we started getting messages of encouragement from outside of the country. People took pictures with messages saying that they are backing up this protest and that the dump needs to be closed and stopped.
وهون كان أول اجتماع مع البلدية لأشرح لهم شو يعني معمل فرز نفايات وكيف بيشتغل، وكان وقتها عم بشرح لهم الموضوع لحتى يقبلوا نعمل معمل لفرز النفايات.
And this is the meeting with the municipality of the village of Majd al-Anjar, where Khalid is explaining in details how the sorting facility works, what it is, so they can get the agreement from the municipality to actually build it. And this is a view from inside of the plant, of the sorting facility. There's many, I think. Yes, this is another one.
So هون يعني كل الاشياء هي شغلات بسيطه ما بدها يعني مش هالمعجزه، بس انه ما بدهم كانوا يعملوا هذا الحل لانه بالمطمر طبعا في طرق للفساد اكثر وفيهم يطلعوا مصاري اكثر، مع انه اذا بيشتغلوا فرز للنفايات بطريقه بيئيه بيطلع كثير ما بيضروا البيئه وبيطلعوا اكثر بكثير مصاري، بس بطريقه شرعيه مش بطريقه سهله وغير شرعيه.
So basically, as you can see, the plant in itself is not a complicated thing. It's not something that needs a lot of heavy technological machinery. It's all almost basic stuff. But in Lebanon, as in probably all the corrupt countries, you cannot do things legally and make a lot of money doing that. You need corruption to be able to make more money. But this way is not the best way. The best way, when we do a sorting plant that can be actually beneficial for the environment, we can actually have our own resources. We can reuse resources, and that will help a lot of people get out of unemployment and poverty. But it has to be legal, and this is what they do not want.
كمان هاي أول ما بلشنا بالصوت.
So this is the first layer of the plant when we began. It's the foundation.
كمان فيها دفع عنه.
Yeah, we can go through these. These are the same. It's the same area when it was beginning. As you can see in the far end, there's at the end there's mountains with snow on them. This is the this is the west chain of mountains. Just after it, there's Beirut and the sea. And if you consider the back of maybe the person taking the picture, you can have the other side, which is the eastern and then Syria.
Syrian border.
The Syrian border.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for this input. And I think we can already see like that there are so many things where we have connections, of course, resistance, also how a political movement how out of a political movement, this form of resistance that again helps to strengthen the resistance is born. So this is really interesting, the reuse of the resources, and of course the topic of garbage. We also heard from Abdallah that this is actually not so much a side topic, but really necessary on how we can reuse these resources. So thank you for this. And now, Serge, I'm really curious you heard from your input, and as I know a little about your work, I think you will also kind of connect all these different points and people from these different places in your work. So please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. First, I need to say something in Arabic to Lina and Abdullah. نحن عنا بالضيعة بيقولوا دخل ربكم ما أجملكم فعليا. I don't know how to translate it, but anyways you will understand. It means a lot to us, me, Khalid, and all the guys and girls that are resisting in Lebanon to actually know that we are not alone, that the struggle is all over the place. So thank you for the People's Resource Center. Thank you for all the guys. Just the fact that we are talking to each other gives us a lot of hope. So thank you. What I want to talk about is our experience at the farm. Maybe we can start with the pictures at the same time, yeah. Please. Mm-hmm. By the way, Ansar, one of the pictures you showed from Syria, it's Brahim, no?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So Khalid will be right back. So these are the pictures from our farm. Let me give some context first. What we do is our main activity is to produce heirloom seeds. So this is the main mission of the farm. Our association and the farm is called Buzuruna Juzuruna, which in English translates to our seeds are our roots. And the idea came about, I think, in 2016, when French activists and Syrian activists and Lebanese activists all met in the Bekaa Valley and started discussing on the importance of seeds. As Abdallah and Lina already said, the importance of food sovereignty before and during the crisis during seeds is of major importance, and this is, I think, what was the driving force that led us to create this association and put together this farm. So our friends from all over the Mediterranean sent us heirloom seeds, local seeds, everything that is not controlled by the patents of big corporations, in order for us to reproduce them and make more quantities of them, and then be able to spread them all around the area. The idea was to recreate the seed libraries that used to exist before the conventional, which is the industrial way of agriculture, took over the whole area. So we can please, can we skip this, the first picture we saw earlier? Not this one, the one before. Yes, so this is our friend and colleague Salim, who is one of the founders of the association. He's spraying, it's biopesticide. It's something that we also produce on the farm. So we produce our own compost, we produce our own biopesticides. This one, I think it's made with garlic and chili pepper, if I'm not mistaken. So basically the idea is to be able to produce on a relatively small scale. It's 2 hectares. The whole area of our farm is 2 hectares, and we produce everything on it in order to be completely self-dependent, not dependent on the outside. So the idea from this is that we take all the resources that are on the land, using agroecology principles, of course, and then we spread the idea of how to do it. We try to teach, and I'll get to this point later. Speaking about seeds specifically, the idea was to get back our heritage, which was lost when industrial agriculture took over in the 50s. And there were a lot of varieties that were endemic to the area, that were coming from here, that were adapted to our climate, that we did not have anymore. They were not ours anymore. So we asked for the help of everyone we knew or who knew someone, etc. And the whole network was able to provide even small quantities, like the local wheat. We got very small quantities from a seed bank in Germany, and we got it back and were able to reproduce it and have bigger quantities. And now it is in the hands of the people. It is in the hands of the agricultures of the area, whether it's Syrian or Lebanese. Can we please go forward? Yes, this is one example of how we do things. Everything, of course, is done by hand. And this is Fatim, one of our friends and colleagues, who is working on the seedlings. So basically, the farm produces seeds. It produces seedlings for people to plant directly. It produces a little bit of vegetables that doesn't go to the seed production, that is either sold in farmers markets in Beirut or Zahle, which are Beirut, the capital, and Zahle is the biggest city in our area. And the idea is, I don't know how you, Lena called it something in English, I cannot remember, but the idea is that the consumer is also responsible. It's also a working part in the agroecological process of producing food. So when you have a consumer that is conscient and feels responsible of what he or she is consuming, and where the production comes from, and what is the ecological impact and the economical impact, in that case you have a closed cycle of what I like to call a revolutionary production. And we can go on with the pictures if you'd like. I can tell you more. The idea also of the farm is to teach. So it is a school farm. We did with a lot of practitioners of agroecology. We did many trainings and many meetings from which came out a curriculum that is available in open source. I can send you the links later so everybody can benefit from it. We got the help of a big cooperative, an independent cooperative from France. It's called Longomai. They have many farms and they work in agroecology as well. And with them, we were able to, I will send you the link of that website. It helps you produce your own seeds. It's called DIYseeds.org, and it's in many languages. Our contribution was to translate it to Arabic for it to be available for everyone. And now farmers all over the area, from Lebanon to Syria, and I'm guessing in Palestine as well, they can just access it on their phone. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Ansar. They can access it on their phones, and they have videos for each and every variety. And then the farm as well, we do training of trainers. So back in 2019, I think, early 2019, before the beginning of the revolution. We had this inter-Mediterranean training. So practitioners from all over the Arab countries on the Mediterranean, from Tunisia and Morocco and Algeria and Egypt and Palestine and Syria and Lebanon, and from France as well. They met all on our farm. And Saad Dagher, that Lina already mentioned, was one of the main trainers, and it was an absolute delight to have everyone here. And this is excuse me, I'm بدأ التليفون.
Okay, someone is calling him on the
So,
phone. So
sorry,
this is
yeah.
why, okay, now he's back.
Everything is okay, I think. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was I saying? This is the small number of sheep that we have. As you can see on the far on the top left, we have photovoltaic panels to produce our electricity. So we are. It helps us a lot because Lebanon has almost 300 days of sun in the year, so it's very practical. This one was a donation from a German NGO called Orientalfer, and it helped us a lot. So we were able to be even more sustainable that way and cut back a lot on our electricity bill. As you can see in the depth on the right, we have our little greenhouse where we produce the seedlings. This is an old picture from early summer. Now we have 2 more seed houses, nurseries in the back. And on the forefront of the picture, you can see our goats. The black ones are our goats. On the left, the white ones are some of the sheeps. Some of them were a donation, and some of them we gave back to our neighbor because they were kind of doing this mixed thing. I don't understand a lot about. And yeah, basically that's it. And in the middle, where you can see the 2 trees, there's this is the chicken area. So basically the farm has chicken, goats, sheep. Here we don't see them, but just behind the solar panels, we have also bees. So we produce honey as well. And the idea is to have to show that it can be done, actually, that all of this is yes, hello.
Fine, it's fine. Somebody.
Madhuraj, there's some sound, or someone else, I don't know. There's some sound from anyone. Please close your mic so we can concentrate on Serge.
Serge, you can
Hello?
continue.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you. And so in these pictures, you can see, so on the left, you have Abdu. In the middle, you have Maisa. And on the right, you have Jum'a. These are all our colleagues. They come from the area of Aleppo, and they had to leave their homes in quite of a rush. Their homes are sadly destroyed now, and they live with us on the farm and work with us until hopefully the future will be brighter. But for the moment, a big part of our team is from Syrian refugees who had to escape their homes, and the idea as well is for them to be able to eventually spread the idea of oh no, this one was the mic, sorry. So the idea is to spread the practice of agroecology the way we do it, because it is profoundly entwined with the political process. So even our decision making is based on a political agenda which is completely horizontal. So what we mean to prove in a way, by example, with this experience, is we want to show that it can be done in a way that is not conventional and pyramidal and completely ridiculous and extremely destructive for societies and nature and human beings. And so what we're showing here is another way of dealing with everything, from the political side to the everyday life, to the treating of any kind of issue. We try to do it as a community, as one people, and this is one of our let's say biggest prides. This and the seeds library, and we can go to the next picture, please. These are roses. So the story of these roses is very important. These roses, the original stem, it comes from Daraya, and from an area that is now complete rubbles, and it was sneaked into the borders, and we were able to reproduce them and have them in bigger quantities. This is a special kind of rose. It's called Ward Sultani. So it is the Sultan's rose, and it is it's just a heartwarming, beautiful scent, and we try to do many things with it. We do jam, we do rose water, we do rose drink, and many things. And then we can go to the next picture, please. And this is chamomile as well from the farm. So this chamomile, it's very particular. If I'm not mistaken, it just grew, you know. We didn't bring the seeds, but the area, the farm, we took it 5 years ago. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Khalid? Serge, Khalid.
Okay. I mean, this can unfortunately happen in Lebanon. This is actually why Khalid and Serge decided to meet, because in Lebanon, the electricity is constantly cutting, and also the internet is really, really bad. Not because it has to be bad, but because of corruption.
Avikal, you can show the pictures until then. I think it'll take us through just the walk through.
So, I can add to maybe, I added an article to the chat where the story of the roses from the farm is told. And Madhurash, you already mentioned in the chat how important this practice is to save lost crop. And it's actually really important to say lost crop, because the Green Revolution in Syria, so the use of all these modernized seeds, actually really led to the fact that the seeds were lost. And here you see a farm. When you go one picture back, you see the library Serge talked about. So this library is even built in the traditional mud way. So as he said, like in every practice they have, they really try to reproduce traditional practices that are useful for society. And in this library, you find Lebanese Syrian, so it's from the area, Lebanese Syrian old seeds that are not only lost due to the policies of these of the regimes, but also in the case of the roses, for example, they really smuggled the roses out of the country to reproduce it. So it's also the hope people have for later. There will be a rebuilding from scratch, from agriculture, from everything, because they do this work and preserve it. And here you actually see another great project. It was they toured in Lebanon, and showed also films and education videos about these topics, and also films that connect the story of resistance and agriculture. So you really see like that they fight the struggle on so many ways, and also Lebanese and Syrian doing this together means a constant proof that that this sectarianism that the politics is always putting forward. So, for example, in Lebanon, the politicians really love to take the Syrian refugees, there are almost 1 million, as an excuse that nothing is working. So the garbage crisis, it's the Syrian refugees. There's no water, no electricity, it's the Syrian refugees. And so also like their living practice together really is a constant proof as an that there is this alternative. So they prove everyone wrong by the work they're doing. And also Serge mentioned like one person on the pictures from Syria when I showed the pictures. So it's also really important to understand, like sometimes it's one part of the family had to flee, another part decided to stay in Syria, and these connections also stay. And the knowledge they share with their local communities is like really national knowledge, as what we are doing right now. So it's really sad that it seems like they're not be able to come back, but maybe we look at the pictures and then we, I don't know, you have to say, Madhuresh, how it's time-wise. Maybe then we listen to the input of the People's Resource Center, or we go, he's back, okay.
Hi, Khalid.
No.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, you're back.
Yeah, so sorry about this.
No problem. Ansar took us through the pictures and she added some of the stories. So if you want to add something,
Yes.
we'll finish because we.
Ansar knows.
Yeah, yeah. But if you want to add something, we'll finish because then it's already way past the time. So we'll have a quick presentation.
No, I just wanted to add a little bit about the context and the revolution, but I think it's going to take us a lot of time. So, so maybe some other time. It was just important to talk specifically about food sovereignty and urban gardening, because a lot of initiatives happened in mainly in Beirut, because it's the most urbanated area. But then the rest of the country, there was this kind of back to the roots, back to the land movement. But I don't want to take more of your time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Khalid. So we'll have, I think before we go to the questions, we will have a quick presentation from Nishant. Nishant has actually had a bigger slide, but then he has shortened it so that at least you get to know some. And I think we will have to have a separate chat about how do we take this conversation further. So Nishant, over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So I think I'm really moved, but also sort of intimidated, because I also have to present. After all these powerful presentations, all these moving, images of, not only reimagination, but also showing an actually working project within such challenging geographies. And I'm really, I thought if we can skip our presentation and just have the session wrapped up with these presentations, but I guess because a lot of people who are attending this session are new to our work. So just to give a glimpse of what we have been doing for past couple of years, I would just quickly give a glimpse of our work in Delhi. Yeah, in any ways, I would just say that the context, and even in the welcome note, Rajendra Ravi was also saying that we have different context of urbanization and of environment, and also of how state and the corporates are acting in our different countries and different regions. But there's the core of it that it is something that is against the grain of the idea of urbanization as the kind of capitalist development, and against that this gives the a different idea of cities where people have more connect with nature, have a more equal relationship with their environment and nature. And as I think Serge was saying in his presentation, that there's also this idea of horizontal relationships, not only in decision making but also in your environment. And there, the idea of ecological sensibility in the cities comes because the cities have completely forgot all kinds of their sensibilities related to ecology. In India also, and in much of global South, sometimes it's also associated with this kind of elite hobby thing that also we wanted to understand in detail, and also wanted to question whether it is only a middle class thing that we see happening in Indian cities. So if I just give you a glimpse of what is happening in Delhi, and I will just show the pictures, just quickly run you through. Delhi has evolved along the banks of a river called River Yamuna, and it has about 22 kilometers of a stretch within the administrative boundaries of Delhi. Delhi is also the national capital. And if you perhaps if you search on Google for Yamuna, you will only get all the bad news about the river and how polluted it is, and how all kinds of hazardous and toxicities and all these things associated with the river. And much of it is contributed, in fact, almost all of it is contributed by Delhi and the kind of urbanization that Delhi has seen. So even in that kind of a scenario, we see farming happening on the Yamuna floodplains in Delhi, and which is not, also just to mention that a lot of people in Delhi and in India think that, and including academicians, including policymakers, that the farming happening on the Yamuna and the produce coming out of it is toxic because it is, it is happening on the banks of a polluted river. But recently, a lot of scientific studies have shown that this is not, this is well below the toxicity levels. And this is because people are not using the river water. So that is another thing. One, that the reason and their activities are being, kind of curtailed. They're deemed illegal in a sense. They are called encroachers on these, river banks. And it is the government department, which is Delhi Development Authority, which has the mandate to develop Delhi, claims that they own this land, and these people who you can see in the picture, and many more thousands of people, are illegally doing these agricultural activities, and they are encroachers. And they are doing whatever they are doing is also a public health issue, because they're growing hazardous vegetables in this area. And all of this is completely unacceptable and illogical. And we are trying to challenge this in whatever ways we can. The farming is also happening in Delhi in a lot of peri-urban areas along the river Yamuna, but also in other places which were erstwhile villages in Delhi. And the urbanization has brought, when this has turned into a mega city of tens of millions of population, and it has kind of swallowed all these villages. But some villages, some patches, we have farming still happening, and the urbanization pressure pressure of urbanization is sort of bringing in these land-related issues where farmers are facing difficulty in terms of holding the lands and claiming that they can do farming activities on these lands. In Delhi, we see a lot of migrant laborers who come from nearby provinces, nearby states in India, contribute to the farming in Delhi. They come as and this is in some form what Lena was also referring to. about retaining the knowledge that and the skills that people have. Similarly, this is an Indian context that a lot of people who are coming from Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, and these villages, they find these works quite in a sense more fulfilling than any urban livelihood options that they can have access to. And women are very central to what is happening as urban farming in Delhi, especially in the peri-urban areas, where they can find a very decent livelihood options and meaningful livelihood options close to their homes. So they don't have to travel far, and they can make their these houses in the fields, and they can they do these kinds of farming activities. Some of them are tenant farmers, and some of them are agricultural laborers. Just to also show this picture, because I talked about Yamuna being really polluted, and this is also Yamuna, and you can see fishing happening here. So this is something that it might be very astonishing for someone who thinks Yamuna is very polluted and there's nothing going on there. So this is the upper part of Yamuna in Delhi. There's kind of 2 or 3 divisions of Yamuna stream that we can categorize as, and the northern stretch is much more, it's quite cleaner as compared to the other 2 stretches, and we have a lot of fisher folks earning their livelihoods catching fish in this part of Yamuna. And we also have in Delhi very it has rapidly decreased, but a lot of animal husbandry and grazing activities also happen, sometimes also from the grazers who come from nearby states to a very limited amount of open space which is available for animals to graze. But yeah, that also happens in some parts of Delhi, and also dairies. Some new forms of urban agriculture which is coming up in Delhi, including the farmhouses and the entrepreneurial farming, which is very closely linked to agribusiness. And India, with the digital thing, becoming more popular, a lot of apps are coming which deliver to your doorstep all the food. So this is becoming more linked to that kind of global economy and agribusiness. And a lot of young people whose fathers and forefathers used to have land, but they had no interest in pursuing. Their sons are now quitting their IT and corporate jobs and taking up these entrepreneurial activities. So this has multiple facets which we can judge on multiple accounts. There are also activities which are terrace gardening and such things, which I said people usually think urban agriculture is all about terrace gardening, but that also happens, but there's a lot of activity which is beyond that. And this, you can see, we were talking also about the waste and how it is considered as a problem or something which we cannot deal with. How to deal with the waste is the biggest urban question in some sense. And we're seeing that there's a growing number of people who are taking to these strategies to build a no or zero waste lifestyle or something of that sort. That is also becoming, and people are becoming more conscious about the kind of waste they are generating. So composting and using the compost to grow their own food is also becoming popular. There are a lot of struggles. We just kind of got a view of the kind of variety of urban agriculture in Delhi, but there's a lot of pressure from the administration, pressure from the government, and pressure of urbanization, which is also pushed by government in a sense. It's all against the urban farming activities which are happening, and it is in great danger. The courts also have a very anti-farmer kind of stance, and they, in fact, the court order itself is about considering the farmers on the Yamuna floodplains as encroachers and and not as a proper stakeholders on Yamuna. So all these things we have to deal with, and these are great challenges. In the research we were, this is these a lot of people have contributed to this research, and many of the photos that you saw were by Abhikal and also by Joe. And with these things, we also organized a national convention on urban agriculture to initiate a debate to consider urban farming as a systemic kind of a thing rather than a hobby thing. To move people who are also practicing, not just the farmers on the peri-urban areas, but also people who are thinking about urban agriculture to think of it as a systemic thing. And it was really fascinating thing. Some of people who presented and who participated in the event are also in this session, and it's really happy to see them remaining close to our initiative. And we have also formed this community, and we are also doing this newsletter thing. And some of the publications, to know more about it in detail, you can see on the website, as we have been sharing on the chat. So just to finish this presentation, I really think that this act of urban agriculture, whether be in India, in Delhi, or in Lebanon, Syria, or Palestine, I think we have a shared struggle, we have a shared reimagination, and I think the act of urban agriculture is, in that sense, a shared subversion and also a shared action for a better future. With that, I think I really thank all the comrades who had and the friends who had joined in this session and presented their work. And PRC stands with their struggles, and we have our best wishes for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishant. Thank you. I just wanted to say that. So yeah, thank you very much. And sorry. Just to say that thank you. It is good to know we got a glimpse, and I know for our Indian friends, everybody knows what is happening in Delhi right now, as we are talking of the seas, which Abdullah was talking. So there is a big farmer protest going on in the country today. For past 4 days now, the farmers from Punjab and Haryana, they have laid siege to city of Delhi. So they have blocked a couple of major highways. If you just Google farmers protest Delhi, you will see lots of images. So I just wanted to mention this because our government is pushing pro-industrial and the contract farming, and as a result, farmers are against it. So they have laid siege, and they are saying, you talk to us, withdraw those bills and policies, then only we will start talking. So they are talking about having farmers right to cultivate and to have their own seeds. We have a huge agrarian crisis in the country as of now. So this, we didn't talk about it because we didn't have enough time to discuss this. But this is where we are in India as of now. So we are experiencing the siege, but this time the farmers are laying siege to the city. So that's, I think. Are there questions here? If we have, I know we have already taken half an hour more than what we had scheduled to. So if there are any questions, I haven't seen many in the chat. There were requests for sending contact details, which I have already posted. But if there is something, if anybody wants to make an intervention, then you can raise your hand and we can perhaps unmute your mic, and then you can just add, I guess. किसी का कोई सवाल है क्या, अगर पूछना चाहते हैं, जो कि चैट में बहुत कुछ आया नहीं है, तो इसलिए अगर किसी को कहना है, कुछ बात कहनी है, तो वो बोल सकते हैं. I don't see anything coming. Yeah, I think Rajendra Bhai, you want to add something that before we end? I think then we can just end it. Or Ansar, if you want to, as a moderator, want to say a few words, then we can take that and then.
No, I think it's now too long, and I already tried to point out like where are the connections. And yeah, let's hope next conversation we can also learn more from your experiences. And yeah, anyone that wants to get in touch, please don't hesitate, write to any of us. If you want to get in contact also with Khalid or Abdullah, we can help with translating. But I think it's important that we break also the borders that for some of us that are not able to travel even during normal times. So yeah, let's use the devices and tools we have.
Thank you. I thank you all on behalf of PRC, all the speakers, and also thank Suraj and Amit, who has been translating on the side in Hindi, and then Mohini, who has been very diligently writing here, Avikal, who was playing the slides, Rahul and Akshita, everybody. So thank you everyone for your presentation. Let me bring all the speakers to the, I can't see Abdullah here. Abdullah is here. I can see him.
Yes. On my screen, he's underneath you, but
yeah, I can't find him in the long.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. Lena, I can see Lena now. Sorry. I'm still, Abdullah, I can see him also. Yeah. Okay. So here we are, all six. Thank you, everyone. And thank you. It has been a really pleasure on behalf of everyone from PRC and from India, and a lot of solidarity to the struggle. I know it's a great struggle going on. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And good night.
Thank you, RC, and everyone, all the speakers.
Thank you all.
Truly moving. Thank you all.
Thank you.